we were in a different space being flamingos of life, just kind of
Flamingos.
like they're kind of
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
How to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, please support us on Patreon.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
So today we are talking about something that's really important to us, and also we are embracing our inner conch. So if you are watching on the video, you'll see our little our shirts because I don't know. I always say motto. It's not really motto.
I think that's how they refer to
Oh,
it.
okay,
The
like-
city, what it says on the back. The official philosophy.
There you go. The official
There we go.
philosophy of Key West, which is the island where we both currently live, is one human family. I think it's like diversity, equity, justice, I think was where it kind of started originally.
Unity, equity, and diversity of all people worldwide.
Well, there you go. It says so on the back of our shirts, apparently. Didn't even know it said that on the back of the shirt. So, because today we are talking about how it is okay to be human. And more importantly, it's not just okay. Like, we have to give ourselves permission to be human, embrace our humanness, because that's part of what it means to meet our needs. And like, we were like figuring out what to wear. And I was like, oh, what do you think about this? And Serena was like, oh, I wish I had mine with me. And I was like, I think I've got a spare. Here you go. And so it just felt like being kind of part of one human family, which is like, as Serena said, like the philosophy of the island. I think the key word in there is human, and it's a word and an idea that we often forget. Well, a lot of us kind of feel like we have to be perfect. And the reason that a lot of us believe that we have to be perfect is because there is this internal belief system that if we are perfect, that our needs will be met. Like subconsciously, that's what's going on. It's like the belief is that the reason that we have been unhappy in the past, the reason that we've not had our needs met in the past is because we've been less than perfect in various different ways. And whether that is professionally, whether it's personally, whether it's in terms of our relationships, whether it's in terms of us and parenting, whether it's in terms of just how we conduct ourselves in day-to-day life, there's this belief that if we can just be perfect enough, that we'll feel good enough. And that we will, and I mean that in both senses of the words, like we'll feel like we are finally good enough, and we will feel good. We will feel enough good inside of us, like we will feel good. So I think that one of the things that's been a big journey for us, not just in getting to this point, and even in terms of like, oh, now we know the needs, this is a thing. Like it's a continual journey for us. And I think that was one of the things that we wanted to share with all of you, which is that it's okay to be human. And we are human too. And we still come up against this. Okay, it's okay to be human. In fact, like I remember one client who went through one of the group program as it was many moons ago. And it's funny, actually, Serena and I we're going through and we're reviewing the content for the self-study program at the moment. And we're gonna have a real laugh one day. We're gonna get a bottle of wine and go back and look at the first version of the And I know I'm gonna be horrified. I know that I'm gonna be like, oh no, what did I do? Because it's so different now. But I remember I had one client who there was a very small part of one of the exercises in which I invited people to use the phrase, I'm human and it's okay. Like if stuff was coming up, I'm human and it's okay. And I remember she said to me that was one of the most powerful things in the whole program for her, because she told herself this all the time, like, I'm human and it's okay. I'm human and it's okay. And I think that that's something that we need to remind ourselves of, because this attempt to be superhuman, this attempt to be perfect, this attempt to be a Stepford wife or like ultimate boss babe or whatever it is that we're trying to be in our lives, often blocks us from actually getting our needs met in so many ways. One of the ways that this shows up is here.
The podcast.
In the podcast. So do you remember how it was when we first started recording the podcast?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
In so many ways.
In so many ways. And me being on video and like, it was like thinking back to how awkward I felt and was.
I remember you felt like you had to smile the whole time.
Oh my God. Oh.
Like an hour of like, which looks really weird, like when you're engaging in a conversation this. We've come a long way. Oh, yeah.
But as we were closing out our last one, not something that you're actually going to hear because it was after the record button had been turned off. But I was like, do you remember when I had to, like, we used to re-record my outro, like, 50 times. I'm just talking about it really is that simple, because there's a certain inflection that happens in my voice quite often when I do it. And if I didn't hit that inflection, we were both like, let's do it again. 15 takes later, I still didn't have it because I was trying so hard for it. It's
well, and it even down to like the planning of the episodes. Like they were scripted. Literally, we would be reading a script.
Yep.
I mean, I wish I could show you my screen right now, because literally we have 4 bullet points on the screen. Like these are this is another one of those free form, let's see where it goes kind of episodes, because it's like what comes to mind when we think about it being okay to be human. And we found that we actually really enjoy recording these episodes. And I think that the feedback we're getting is that these are the more enjoyable episodes, because it's not just like fire hose of content and very like scripted, like you get us. You get the real us, like whether you like it or not kind of thing. Like, this is us, and we are human, and we do make mistakes. And there was a period where, I mean, we I think for maybe 2 episodes, we tried to like duck quack out the cuss words, like all the. I'm like, that lasted long, but it's like.
Actually, somebody being Serena without swear words. I'm like, yeah, no, it's just
it's
not natural.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. You're getting the human versions of us. We used to re-record full episodes.
Oh yeah,
because we're like, oh no, we didn't read the dialogue well. Like, oh my gosh.
And the funny thing is, even now, like even where we're at now, I mean, we are in the realm of our 100th episode. I'm not sure exactly where this is going to fall. It may be just before it. It may be just after it. Somewhere around here. We've been doing this a really freaking long time at this point. Like, and even now, like there are moments where like, we'll finish a podcast and we'll be like, okay, that was okay. Like some of them we get off and we're like, yes.
Nailed it.
Normally
and then we look at record and we're like,
haven't hit record. Damn it. Shit. Like I remember like our New Year's Eve episode, that was like the one where it was like, yes, it went in different direction to where we expected it. It felt really good. It felt really solid. And that was one of the ones where we hadn't hit record, which is why you have a slightly different audio on that one, because you got the audio just from the microphones on the computer. But the interesting thing about it is that now, like at the point when we began, we would have been like, I'm not sure about that one. I feel like we maybe need to redo it or redo a section of it or try it again and see if it feels better the second time. And I'm going to be honest, when we used to re-record episodes, almost 100% of the time, we're like, oh, it just wasn't good. It wasn't as good as the original. Nope. I think there's only one episode where we re-recorded it. And what we did was we shuffled the order of it. So it was more punchy and it was like, oh, this flows better. Like, so it felt more natural. It felt more human, which is why it like, I think that it was one of the Christmas episodes, wasn't it? Where it was like, okay, hold on. No, this is better now. Like, I feel like we didn't wander off and meander the way that we sometimes do.
If you're wondering what we're talking about, go and listen. Those first like 10 episodes that we say, you know, if you watch this one first, we're like, you know, skip those episodes and come back to them. If you want to hear what we're talking about, just go and listen to the first episode.
Yeah. It
Like-
was very
Different.
curated, I think is the right word.
Well, and it was trying to be as perfect as possible, and like
you want to make a good impression. This is
Right.
a new project. Like we wanted to do it well. We wanted to do
professional and
we wanted to do the content justice. We wanted to do you, the listener, justice. We wanted to make sure it was good. But in trying to be good, we took out the human element. And the human element is the thing that, I mean, we have had so much feedback from listeners who are like, I just feel like I'm hanging out on the couch with you two in a glass of wine when I'm listening. And we're like, yes, that's what we want. And you take the human element of it. I mean, sitting on the couch with two robots and a glass of wine isn't as fun.
right. I mean, like the outro that I use is bye friends, because that's like I feel like that's what I want, like for friend, like not listeners, like and yes, you are.
Yeah.
However, like.
And I've had clients who have never spoken to Serena, who like that
they know
something
me.
will come up. And like, I feel like I know her, and I'm like, yeah, I know how that feels. Like I've been that way with people I've listened to on podcasts as well. And it's like it's okay that some of them are just okay, because the funny thing is, if they're all amazing, none of them are actually amazing, because there's no variation. Like there are times where I'm like, oh, I wish that felt a bit punchier. Like, I feel like we could do that better. And the better use of our time is getting the damn content out there so that you can get access to it quicker. Like, we could spend literally, we could spend all our time recording podcasts and trying to make them as perfect as possible. We have so many episodes queued up.
It's funny. Somebody asked me this past weekend who I'm in a close relationship with. I mean, they're not unaware of what's going on. A close friend that listens to the podcast, and they're like, "Did I hear you're running out of content?" And I'm like, "What?
No,
Are you freaking kidding me?" I was like,
What?
We have like now we're at almost probably 400 episodes waiting to be recorded. It's like,
and then because of how life happens with us, like we know the human element is really important to our podcast now. We know that things feeling natural and feeling engaging and feeling like
in alignment for where we're at.
Yeah, is really important. So if there is a topic that feels really relevant to us, if there's something like, oh, this happened, like we have another new episode that I wrote down on this morning. Like one of the episodes we've already recorded that you've already probably listened to came because Serena was like, hey, I had this idea. Let's try this morning. I'm like, okay, let's try it. I added another one this morning based on something that happened to me last night. That is always happening.
The series, the What to Do When You're Both in the Well shit,
Right.
that came because of the situation with Larry. And I was like, I feel like we should speak to this. And then all of a sudden I come back and it's like, okay, we have a series because that's what was present. And it's like, and we can speak to it from a different place. Like, I could speak to that a year from now, but like you got the rawness and the human of it. You got the, like where I was at.
And the thing is that where Serena, like we basically planned the first episode in that together. And then I sat with it and I was like, hold on a second. There are elements to this that were my perspective on what happened that could be equally helpful to people as Serena's perspective. So it's like when we want to go with what feels relevant and right at the time. And there are times where we're like, oh God, people have asked for these episodes and we really want to make sure we record them and get them in there. But again, to make them feel as relevant and human and relatable as possible, it's far better for us to be recording them when they are relevant to our lives. Because, I mean, as we say in the listen to this first episode, go listen to an episode that is relevant for where you are at in your life, because this content comes alive when you're listening or talking about something which is relevant to your life in the here and now. Like we had an episode that we recorded, I think it was yesterday, and we were like, we got off the end and I'm like, I wish that felt a little punchier. It was solid. It had good stuff in it. It was valuable content. And I feel like our sparkle wasn't as fiery as it usually is. I mean, and if you've listened to us for a while now, we get fire on some of our episodes.
Yeah.
There's one where I go on a random rant about something. I think it's the Sorry Not Sorry episode where I just go off on it because it's something that's relevant to me and my life, and being human is important. And so often when it comes to our needs, we don't think about our humanity. We think about perfectionism. We think about what society's expectations are of us. And those societal expectations often include perfection, achievement, acquisition, all these things that are external to us. Well, those are society's measures of success. They've got, honestly, fuck all to do with what feels successful to us. And in actual fact, speaking from personal experience, someone who did a lot of those things, who went and was successful and achieved and acquired and all the things, I feel far more successful by becoming more human and embracing more of my humanity. And my needs are better met when I do that. Like so often, like I remember when I worked in corporate media, so often, like the reason I left was because I knew I was never going to be successful. And the reason I knew I was never going to be successful was because the people who were successful in that environment at that time, in that company, with my experience, were the people who were willing to do anything to get to the top. And I mean anything to get to the top. Like it wasn't just cut a couple of corners here and there. I knew I wasn't going to be able to step over other people to get to the top. That's not how I work. I want to work with people. I want to get to the top with people, not against people. And now, like, I can't imagine being in that environment because we are in such a supportive environment where, like, if Serena doesn't win, I don't win. If our clients don't win, we don't win. Like if it doesn't work for society as a whole, it's not a win for us. And I'm more fulfilled than I've ever been in my life because I have allowed myself to be human. More important than that, the feedback we get from people when they listen to the podcast is like, thank you for being real. Like, thank you for sharing what's going on in your life. Thank you for sharing that everything's not always perfect. Far from it, if you're part of our world. And I don't know. I mean, I'm curious as to like what your take on the kind of it's okay, like what your journey with this has kind of felt like. Because I know for me, I've gone from trying to be this corporate clone, perfection in every way to try, and I was miserable in that environment. And I'm like now, like, I mean, I shared about my anxiety sweats on one of the episodes. I mean, like, you don't get much more human than that, but that's what people connect with. And that's, I think, the reason that the people who listen to us, like you, the listener, that's the feedback we keep getting, which is like, thank you. Like, I don't feel alone. And like so much of how society is constructed lends itself to us feeling alone and isolated and different and the odd one out. And that can compromise our needs. Whereas the more human we are and the more we connect to that, the more those needs are kind of better fulfilled and met.
I definitely relate to that. And especially before I moved to the island, my last big position was in a casino. And that industry in itself is slimy at best just because of the industry itself. There's a lot of working pieces that make it such. It's also a male dominated industry. Yeah. I was also at that point, I was very, very overweight. So I was a woman who was seen as an undesirable woman in a very glitzy, glamorous, attractive industry. And I had that same feeling. And I was actually told, you're not gonna progress because you don't play the game. Right. Like, and that's something I used to play the game, but there's certain things that I would not.
Right.
There's certain games I just wouldn't play.
Right.
And a lot of those came with my, like, I've always been a strong woman. And I'm like, no, like, I'm going to stand up to you. And I stepped on some toes with my boundaries, which I didn't even know that's what I was doing at the time. But I had like a salary I wanted to get to, and that was success. And then I had the job that I wanted, and that was success. And when I left the casino, my husband and I left to go travel. There is a lot of privilege in being able to do that in the many levels of that. Yeah. And there was a lot of sacrifice that came with that as well. We lived in a lot of Walmart parking lots in a very small trailer. We were eating cold canned food because we were making that sacrifice to be able to do the traveling.
Right.
I remember there was one night sitting in the parking lot, in a Walmart parking lot, I'm eating my cold ravioli out of a can, which I wasn't a big fan of ravioli to begin with. Like, there was a couple of things that I'm like, okay, this is just to sustain. And I'm like, I don't know whether this is the best thing or the worst thing. Like, have I made it or have I completely failed? And this was like the third night we were on the road. It was the beginning of our trip.
Right.
And unequivocally, it was the best decision we made for ourselves because of where we were and what we were doing. And there's a lot of people who I share that story with, and they're like, oh, that's amazing, or, you know, that's interesting. And there are some people that see it as like
horrified.
Horrified. They're like, oh,
what?
Why would, ew, like, oh, and you're not bringing in a salary? And it's like, no, I live very simply right now.
Right.
And I am more fulfilled in that. Yeah. And their idea of success, like, it's almost like they're trying to swipe me with it. Like, that's not success. I'm like, that is, for me, that's success. I was fulfilled. I was happy. And then coming back here, falling back into habits I didn't know existed, coming out of it and being like, yeah, right now we're doing the back work for the company. So it's not lucrative for me to be from a financial sense, but this is success.
Right.
I don't need a salary to be successful. I don't need certain things.
Well, it's like as you say, there's a lot of privilege in that because we both have put savings in place so that we've planned for this so that we can dedicate, like, one of the biggest things we're focusing on at the moment is one of the community-based projects, which is the self-study course, because it's going to be available on a sliding scale. So it's not something that we expect to be a huge income generator for the business. It's about accessibility and getting the work into the hands of the people who need it and who want it. And so what we've done is we've engaged with our privilege to then make different choices so that we can do this this community-based work. And I mean, there's client work as well that kind of comes, but like the big focus at the moment, like the lion's share of the time and the work is dedicated to the self-study program. The interesting thing is, I think that is also a really good example of like what it is, like the whole "it's okay to be human" thing. Like there were two phrases that Serena brought up yesterday, which is like it's important not to let perfectionism get in the way of progress, but also sometimes good enough is good enough. And that's something that we have to continually remind ourselves, because what is, like, okay, we're going to come back to the same old into creator approach. What is our outcome? Our outcome is to get this in the hands of people and have it be as valuable as possible when it is there. Now, what that means is that we want to have as much as we can have in there without spending the rest of our lives trying to perfect something that is never going to go live, because it's never perfect and it's never going to be perfect. The good thing with what we do, and I think that's one of the things that is like the way that we've embraced this kind of being human, is that none of the content that we ever share is definitive and absolute. We are constantly learning. We are constantly growing. And the more we learn and grow, the more the content evolves. Like, we update it, we expand on it, we tweak it, we change it based on what we're learning as we're learning. I can't think of a more human thing than that. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what's more human than being like, okay, yesterday I didn't have all the information and now I've got some more information and this is where I'm operating based on that information that I have. But interestingly enough, like putting together the slides, getting the images in place. Like,
I am constantly reminding myself it's okay to be human and get out of your head with this, because I mean, we want to make it inclusive. We want to make it complete. We want to there's a lot of things that we're trying to accomplish with this. And there have been times where I've hit like week-long blocks where I'm like, because I'm looking for perfection. I'm like, that is good enough right there. Like that's, it may not be the perfect image. I have this perfect image in my head and it's like, I want it to look like this. With the resources that I have, I've found this, which, okay, like that works.
It's 95%. It's not 100%.
So I can waste another day, week, however, looking for that 1% that I may never fucking find because it doesn't exist.
Right.
Or I can put it in, I can come back to it.
Right.
Or I can just be like, good enough, because we want to get this out.
Right. Because that's our outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I think that so often the strive for perfection really does block a lot of our needs from being met.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, like we're focused on this goal that is a lot of the time societally driven, where it's like, okay, society says I have to have this kind of a job with this kind of a salary, this kind of a house, this kind of a car, this kind of vacations, like whatever it is, like whatever that version is for wherever you're at. And if I don't have those, I'm not successful. But then what ends up happening is that those become our focus. And a lot of the time, the strive for those things cause us to cost our needs in the process. Personal power need, right off the bat. I don't have a choice. That's what I have to do. Like if we are in that space, we're compromising our personal power need. Our value need, like us having the things that we value and that are important to us, our needs being met, believing that we are worthy of having our needs being met. If we're in that space, a lot of the time we're like, no, my needs don't matter because I have to have this. Subconsciously, because we think it's going to meet our needs, which is a really fucked up like dynamic. But you think about like emotional experience expression. Like how many people I know so many people who I've had conversations with over the years who are like, it doesn't matter if I'm happy, I'll enjoy my retirement.
Yeah.
Like I'm just working right now, or I'll be happy once I get married, or once I have kids, or once I hit this promotion. Like I'm just going to head down, bum up, focusing on what I need to do to get there. And once I get there, then I'll enjoy life.
Oh, I've been there so many times in my life. And then I get there and I'm like, okay, I'm here.
Now what? Doesn't feel good.
What's next? Or it's almost like you get there and a lot of times like it's all nuanced, situational, but it's almost like the quick hit. You get there, like that feeling doesn't usually last very long, like
because it's not actually what fulfills your needs.
Right.
You're getting the dopamine hit from achieving the goal. And it's like, yay, I've got it there. And it's almost like the yay and the hit you get is the anticipation of how this is going to feel, not the actual feeling associated with it.
That's actually a really good point, because you're feeling it.
You were like yay, I finally made it. And then you go, fuck, is this how it feels? Like, no, this was supposed to be like it. This was supposed to be the thing that made me feel happy, blah, 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 blah.
This was the thing that was going to fix all the things.
And all of a sudden, and it's like, how many people don't get the privilege of living to retirement or living to that point, whatever that point is that we've decided on. And so we end up like compromising our emotional experience and expression need in the process. Like it's that whole thing. I mean, they always say like life is not a destination, it's a journey. I mean, it's a cliche for a reason. Because it's true, like in the sense that like what matters is the enjoyment as we are doing this journey, not this finite point we're trying to get to.
It's kind of like the needs in general. You know, we've talked about Maslow's hierarchy. Comes to a point. What do you do when you get to the top of that point? You look down. And we utilize the...
and you cause a lot of problems.
Well, yeah, on the way up.
I mean, there's a lot to Maslow's that's really screwed up.
I'm talking shape in general, but like it's a point. You get to the top and then you're there. Not
self-actualization. Well, now what?
Now what?
There's different variations of that model and what have you. But I think that believing that there is a linear fact, like if we're human... We're identifying with the fact that we are part of nature. Like there is a natural element to us. What part of nature is like, oh, we get to there and then we're done?
Right. Evolution just ends.
Like it's cyclical. There's seasons to it. There are layers to it. It's like a tree doesn't go, okay, I'm getting to 6'4" and then I'm done. I'm not growing anymore.
I'm going to go straight up this way.
Exactly.
No out.
And once I get there, that's when I'm going to enjoy life. That's when I'm going to start putting the flowers out. We're not doing any of this flower shit until we get to 6'4". Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
when you put it in those terms, you're like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
But it's what we do as humans.
Yes. Or as beings that don't recognize our humanity. Yes. It's like we see ourselves as these kind of robots and these like things that are just like, okay, we just got to plug away. And that's the reason so many of us end up on this life conveyor belt, which is what I call it. It's like where it's like you just do school and then college and then you get a job and you get a partner and you get married and you have babies and you buy a house, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and go, what happened? How did I end up here? How did I end up as a middle-aged person with kids and a mortgage? And like, what? Is this actually what I wanted? Because we don't stop and think about what we want.
Or as society puts it, this is what you want.
Yeah.
And I mean, for so many years, I mean, when I was 27, I had a little quarter life moment where I was like, I have none of the things I'm meant to have, which was, you know,
I did the same at 30.
Yeah, the career,
Yep.
the relationship, the house, the children, and like all of these things that I hadn't accomplished. And so in my mind, I wasn't at all successful in that sense. And looking back, I'm like, fuck, for that age, like I was doing pretty fucking good. Like with my issues that I was having.
Right.
But now looking back at it being 42, I'm like, wow, had I pushed for the things that I thought would make me successful, it works for some people. Some people that is success. I'm not saying that isn't success.
Right.
In my world, that wouldn't have been, but I thought it was because society told me.
Well,
it was.
and the thing about it is, again, and we've covered this in a previous episode, like I kind of want to get a little bit away from this sort of success thing and back to the kind of human thing, is that is why it is success is successful for you, because your needs are being fulfilled. And that's our purpose as humans, is to have our needs fulfilled. We live in a society and in a structure which works against that. And so it's like we have to kind of unlearn this. I mean,
it's like unlearning the roboticism.
Right. Well, it's about unlearning this conditioning around, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And instead starting to recognize that as part of our humanness is being imperfect. And some of our humanness is seeking to get our needs met. And the ways that we have been taught to do life often work against that. Now, do we need to make sure that we have enough in our lives to keep the lights on and to keep a roof over our head and to keep food in the fridge? Absolutely. We are still living in a capitalistic environment. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going, throw all of it out the window.
Right.
Go dance on the beach in your underwear. I mean, you can do that. It could be fun. But we do need to be mindful of that. We're not kind of saying ignore the realities of our situation, our society. What we're saying instead is like to stay connected to the fact that we are human beings with these needs. And in order to feel fulfilled as human beings, we need to take care of our needs. And it's okay to take care of our needs. How often are we societally conditioned not to be human? How often are we conditioned to not show emotion, to not have wants and needs and desires, or those to be shamed? To how often is it that we are discouraged from seeking acknowledgement, even of ourselves? How often are we conditioned out of believing our worth? How often are we conditioned out of believing we have choice, or seeing how we can engage with our choice? And I mean, I'm only talking, I'm not even getting into the branch of the tree in terms of needs, but not only is it okay to be human, it's okay to be fallible. We fuck up all the time. all the time. Like, and all the time. And I think that that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this episode, is because I think sometimes people hold us in these images of perfection. Are like, they've got it. They've got the answer. They figured it out. They're where I want to be. And we may be where you want to be, but we haven't got it all figured out. We're still learning. Mm-hmm. We still make mistakes. We still make amends for those mistakes. We're still doing better and learning and growing. And that's how we're adding so much more new content into the program. Because it's like, oh, yeah, got to put that in. Mm-hmm. Off it goes. So not only is it okay for us to be human, but it's through embracing our humanity and the needs of us as humans that we actually become more fulfilled. And that requires some unlearning, because there's a lot of conditioning that we have which works against that.
So much conditioning that works against that. And I kind of want to speak to that in the, kind of tying in the one human family and being human. There is no, like, Claire and I are very similar, but there are no two humans that are alike. So to look at a Stepford situation or the cookie cutter, like it's supposed to look this way, it's kind of like needs. The chances that what meets my needs in the moment is going to meet Claire's needs in the moment, super fucking the chances of it hitting dead on, almost impossible.
Right.
Even getting in the realm, like it's like, oh, that could be true, but my situation's different because of X, Y, Z. So I think we often take the humanity, like the different, like the thing that makes humanity beautiful is the differences and what we can learn from each other. And I think our island is in the one human family concept, beautifully kind of shows that in many instances, because there is, if you've ever been to Key West, like the people who live here, the locals, there's a lot of differences. Like
it takes all sorts. It really does.
It really does. And I think
this is a good concept. Like, I don't necessarily feel that anywhere or anyone, like Key West included, is really fully living it.
Yes.
Like, I think that this is something that is really great to kind of focus on and aspire to and to work towards. But in order to do that, we have to connect to our humanity. In order to connect to that, we also have to connect to the humanity of others, especially those who are different to us. And so this is where the humanity kind of comes in at another level, our humanness, why it's not only okay to be human, it's essential to be human. Because by connecting with ourselves as humans and connecting with others as humans, we actually end up with our needs better met because of that interconnectedness piece between us. I mean, we've talked about this on lots of previous episodes, but it's like, this is so much more. Like, I think that one of the things that kind of comes to mind when we start talking about this is like, it's okay to be human. Like, it feels like a platitude in a lot of ways. It's like, oh, it's okay to be human. But it's like, what does this mean? What does it mean from a needs perspective? When you put a needs lens on what it is to be human, all of a sudden, everything we're striving for and everything we're trying to achieve is actually operating against our humanness. Because our humanness is our needs. It's about embracing all of it. It's messy. It's clunky. It's
awkward and weird
and imperfect and magical and exquisitely disorganized. We are nature. And we're imperfect. And that is, like, I just think that so often we are, like, these things seem like good ideas in concept, but it's like, how do we apply those? And what does it mean to be okay to be human? What it means is, first and foremost, you are worthy of having your needs met simply because you exist. I know we've said it before. We've said it a few times. I think we've said it recently, actually. But I'm going to say it again. You are worthy of having your needs met simply because you exist. And what that means is, by connecting to that, we can connect to how essential it is for us to start taking care of our needs. And taking care of our needs might mean actually letting go of, or shifting, or outright rejecting some of the concepts that we've been conditioned into, like perfectionism, like individualism, so many of them that work against us in getting our needs met.
And we're both recovering perfectionists
hell
as well.
Yes.
Just in case, like, you didn't pick that up from what we were saying, like, kind of like how we're recovering rescuers. And because of that, like, it's a constant, the amount of times I have to remind myself, like I said, with the work, with just even knocking over a glass of juice or something. It's like, there have been times like in the past where I would have berated myself and been like, oh, you're clumsy.
I mean, like, how many times do we trip or bump ourselves or knock into something? Like, I mean, it's like a way of life for us. Like,
It really is. And imagine, and I'm sure you don't even have to imagine. Probably I believe I can say recall when we were in a different space, being flamingos of life, just kind of
Flamingos.
Like, they're kind of awkward. They're always tripping over themselves. I feel like when like a flamingo walks, like.
I was like,
they're awkwardly fabulous.
Flamingo? I thought
they're fabulously awkward, or like, have you not like?
Yeah,
that's such a cheesy thing.
It
to
is
say.
a very cheesy thing to say. I'm like, okay,
or a baby horse. Like, that's what it reminds me of. Like, because we both embrace it. Like, we both.
Oh yeah. Like, I just ricochet off things. I'm like, oh, okay. Then and then people are like, what are you doing to yourself? And I'm like, oh, oops,
bumper cars.
Oh well. Boing.
But imagine every time that happened, it's like, oh, fuck, I'm such a klutz. Like, in kind of doing that negative self-talk. Like,
and the second that you do that, you compromise your needs. Because you compromise your value need, you compromise your acknowledgement need, you actually compromise your emotion, experience, and expression need, because you're bringing in an emotion because of how you are negatively talking to yourself without honoring. Like, yeah, I might be a little irritated by the fact that my shoulders hurting now because I've just walked into something. But there's a very big difference between that and me feeling abject shame because I'm internalizing that as there is something wrong with me. And so often, I think this is kind of where I want to kind of like pull this as like all. Like, I mean, we've gone in a number as usual. We've gone in a number of different directions, and I think that's the essence of this, which is that like when you are having those moments where you notice you judging yourself for being human, you're kind of disconnecting from your own humanity. And that's the invitation. That is the opportunity to be like, okay, where am I expecting myself to be perfect? Where am I expecting myself to be the ultimate version of me? Where am I expecting more of myself than I would expect of my friends or my family? Where am I holding myself to standards that other people held me to that they never held themselves to? Where am I holding myself to something I've been conditioned into, which actually I don't give a shit about? Like, so how many things it's like, whoa, hold on a second. Why am I trying to do this? I don't give a shit about this. This is a society thing. This has nothing to do with me. And in those moments, like when you hit the sound shield without meaning to, in those moments where you have those moments where you're noticing that imperfection, when you're noticing that humanness and you're judging it or you're criticizing it or you're wanting to change it or eradicate it, that is your invitation to step into it. That is your moment where you can say, I'm human and it's okay. And allow yourself to be human. Because there is so much compassion in that. By allowing ourselves to be human, we extend compassion to ourselves. We extend empathy to ourselves. We meet our acknowledgement need in ways that we previously probably haven't experienced. We meet our value need because we validate our experience. Like, there are so many things where the outside world is kind of working against us and trying to mold us into something that we're not. Those moments where we can see that and we can shatter that mold and go, fuck no, I'm going to be me, not the version of me that the rest of the world is telling me I should be. And as long as you are doing that in ways which are self first, which is those ways that are taking care of your needs in ways that at the minimum do not harm others, yourself, or the needs ecosystem, and sometimes may also benefit yourself, others, in the needs ecosystem. As long as you're adopting it that way, then it's nobody else's business. And the rest of the world really doesn't have jack to say about it. And those who do have something to say about it are actually projecting their own insecurities and their own unmet needs, because there's a part of them saying, why the hell should you be allowed to be yourself when I don't allow myself to be myself?
That right there.
And it's like that this is this moment. And the more that we do this, the more we embrace who we really are, the more that we allow ourselves to be human, the more just by being that, we give other people permission to let go of those standards, to let go of that conditioning, and to be whoever they are.
Mm-hmm.
And
it allows you to see the humanity in others. That was one of the biggest things. Like after you go through kind of attaching to your own, in my personal experience, it gave me awareness and capacity and a lot of things that helped me to look at others and see they're human too.
Well, and it's that symbiotic relationship, our humanity and others, the humanity of others. The more we see the humanity in ourselves, the more we see the humanity in others. And the more we connect to the humanity in ourselves, the more we connect to the humanity in others. The more we connect to the humanity in others, the more we connect to the humanity in ourselves. It's there's not one path to it, and it's not like. And I honestly think both are required. I think that you can't access your full humanity unless you fully connect to the humanity of others. I don't think you can fully connect to the humanity of others until you connect to your own. So I think that it's the kind of beautiful symbiotic relationship in that humanity. But the more that we normalize this being human, the more that we normalize it's okay to have emotion. It's okay to value ourselves for who we are, even if we're not what everybody else thinks we should be. The more that we allow ourselves to wear whatever the fuck we want, to, again, say and do, as long as we're not harming ourselves, anybody else, or the needs ecosystem, whatever the fuck we want. Like that is... It is going against the grain of our societal conditioning, but it allows us to connect more fully to our humanness and the humanness of others. And through that, we will better meet our own needs. That felt like a little bit of a soapbox moment. Apologies for that. I'm up on a soapbox. How did I get here?
It did tie it up nicely with the bow, though, because I think yes.
Yes.
Just yes.
I think yes.
I think yes.
Like, you know what? The world would be a much easier place if people just would be able to say that at times. I just think yes.
You don't need my 2 cents on it because I agree.
Exactly. And the more, and this is this is why we try to show our humanness as much as we can, and show.
This is why we don't edit out the fuck ups, whether it be technical, whether it be. I mean, how many times do I lose train of thought? I've actually done really good in recording today. I think maybe like once I did it.
Yeah.
Meandering, that's a different story. But even there are times when we call each other out on here because that's human.
Right. And this is what relationship looks like between two humans who value humanity. Because it's like, I want Serena to be the best version of herself that she can be. And I want her to be in alignment with herself. And I know her values are, I want to not do harm to others. And she knows exactly the same thing about me. So if I say something, she's like, hold on. I'm like, thank you. Thank you for helping me be in alignment with who I really am. Not this conditioning I've had that has me saying something that I don't really mean and I'm not really thinking about. I'm just being lazy with my language and it's going to potentially cause harm to others. I want to shift that. I want to change that. This is how we support each other in that. And that's how we support you, is by sharing this stuff with you. So like we share our humanness with you, and we invite you to share your humanness with us as well. And if there's like, okay, I get this, Claire, or I get this, Serena, how do I do it with this? Like, this feels difficult. I know that one of the areas that this shows up, which is really tough for people, is parenting. Like, and I know that we are not parents ourselves. We don't have our own biological children. We have a lot of people that we support using that kind of energy. But I've also worked with a lot of clients who've got children. And I've offered a lot of tools and approaches that are very, very, the feedback is that they've been unbelievably helpful because they're needs rooted. And once you understand the needs, you can support people in understanding how to support other people with their needs met. But one of the things that's really tough for parents is like, how do I be human when I want to be the best for my child? I want to be the role model. I don't want to admit my mistakes. Well, when you admit your mistakes as a parent, and we have a parenting series that is coming up, we've been asked about this and it is coming. Like, how do I, like, when we as parents allow ourselves to be less than human, less than perfect and fully human, we give our children permission and we let them know it's okay to make mistakes. And it's one of the best ways you learn. Like, how do you learn? You learn by making mistakes and screwing up and going, oh shit, not that way. Feedback. Thanks. Know that now. I'm going to do it this way. Let's try this way instead. Like being able to apologize, being able to show it's okay to make mistakes. It's not making mistakes that shows your character. It is what you do when you make a mistake and how you then address it and make it right that shows your character. By showing your flaws, you show your humanity, and it allows your children to connect to their own and not expect themselves to be perfect because they're modeling themselves in your image. And if you're showing a perfect image that's not the whole story, then they end up creating a whole new layer for themselves that they then have to unlearn. So, and again, you don't have to be perfect at being human either. It's okay to go, damn it, I wish I'd done it this way that time, and go back and apologize for that, or go, actually learning for next time. Next time this shows up, this is how I'm going to do it.
I mean, we still, going back to the slides, like there are times like, I went down a hole. I was like stuck on this for an hour. And then I realized, and I was like, okay, and moving on. Like, I can be in that spot where I'm holding myself to some sort of standard that who knows, well, society, that's where it came from. Right. And then come back to it and be like, okay, no, like, this is okay. It's okay that this isn't exact. Like,
right. And it's okay
coming back to it.
It's okay for us to be human. Like, I mean, especially doing what I do and being the person who, like, even Serena comes to for support and what have you. Like, I think people expect me to be perfect in how I deal with things. And I'm not. Like, Serena will tell you all the time. Like, I don't even wait to be called out most of the time. Most of the time I call myself out and I'm like, oh, shit, that was not, I apologize for that. That's not, I'm having a moment. This is going on right now. It doesn't matter what the reason is. I apologize. That's not how I want to do things. So I think it's really important for you to recognize that we are human and allow yourself to be just a little bit more human today. You don't have to, it's not like a light switch. It's not like, oh, I'm not allowing myself to be human. Bing, here I am. In my full humanity. Like, that's not how this works. But every day, just allowing yourself to be a little bit more human, to be a little bit more gentle with yourself, to give yourself a little bit more empathy and a little bit more compassion. Step by step, we allow ourselves to be the full us. And the more the full us we are, the more the full us everybody else allows themselves to be. The full them. I'm not really sure. It's us when it's us, and it's us to them as well when it's them. Anyway, that was a very roundabout way of saying by doing this for ourselves, we actually end up making our communities better as well. And we support everybody in moving into this space. Anything you want to add before we
I think that was a good
finish up?
A good finisher.
I'm not sure it was a good finisher, but it was a finisher.
Well, the last part of that made sense.
The last part, good.
Well, it all made sense, but the last part of it was clear.
And you know what? I'm human and it's okay if it's not perfect. So I'm happy to leave this on that note. I kind of feel it's almost kind of perfect that it's not perfect. So
I just double checked on the recording again because
we're good.
This kind of stems off of our perfection episode was the time that we realized at the initial, we're human. Let's just fucking show people.
Right. Like, we're not going to edit. It doesn't matter what goes into it. And then we didn't record the damn thing. I mean, and that first version of it was so exquisitely perfect in the sense that everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And we were going to leave it all in there. Yep. But you have to record it in order to leave it all in. So maybe we'll do another one of those episodes in the future where we will leave everything in and see what happens. And as Serena said, we hardly edit anything out these days anyway. It's only if like, actually, I don't think that piece of content needs to be in there. Let's take that out. Or it's making it a little bit long and I don't think it's actually helping. Let's just take that out. So that's the only reason really that, or if we have an extended pause or some kind of sound technical issue, that's when we tend to edit. But yeah, so thank you for staying with us. And we would love to hear your experiences of this. Like, where have you kind of allowed yourself to be more human? Where have you seen somebody else be human, whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, and you go, oh God, thank you for the reminder. It's okay.
Where do you struggle being human?
Yes.
Like, there are certain things that I struggle with more often, like more than other things. Like sometimes I nail being human, like in some areas, and then sometimes I'm like, oh,
like, so close-ish. Yeah, absolutely. Please let us know, because we would love to do a follow-up episode on this that kind of connects into those pieces and helps like, okay, we've shared about this. Here's where I struggle with that. okay, here's how you can start to approach that in a way. Because a lot of the time, the fear of being human is the fear of our needs not being met, because we're afraid if we're our full selves and we are rejected or other people don't like it, our love needs going to get unmet, our security need, our value need. So that's the reason it's so important for us to do this, because the more we do this, the more we make it so that other people realize they can be themselves and still not have their needs be compromised. And that's the reason that meeting our needs as we do this process is so important, so that we're not worrying so much, that the impact of that potential risk quietens, because it's like, okay, yeah, I know I'm out here. I know I'm different. I know that not everybody's going to like that. But if my needs are met, it doesn't matter if not everybody likes that. And more importantly, then I find the people who do love that. And those are my people. And that's where I belong. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, just as long as you're doing it in a self-first way.
That part. Yes. And on that note, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll be back again really soon. And between now and next time, remember to stay safe, to take care of yourself. And between now and then, to continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us. And remember, you're human and it's okay.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.